timber should I buy? There are so many choices. Oh my god, I see a sustainable forestry certification called FSC. I think I should buy this timber because it uses sustainable methods. Now that more and more consumers are wondering whether the resources they buy are sustainable or not, organizations now offer sustainable forestry certifications. These are for products that are made using sustainable methods. Traits such as the location, the type of wood, and the environmental impact determine the sustainability of the forestry practice. The Sustainable Forestry Certification is a form of eco-labeling that tells the consumer whether the timber has been made using sustainable methods. In order to look for the Sustainable Forestry Certification, consumers can look for logos of organizations such as ISO, SFI, and FSC. As of now, 38% of Earth's terrestrial land is dedicated to agriculture, which is larger than the percentage dedicated to forests. Although more and more farmers are beginning to practice no-till farming and other sustainable farming methods, the majority of farmers still maintain traditional agricultural methods such as salvage logging. Many people urge the government to stop supporting farming that uses intensive methods. Despite their opposition, 1/5 of a farmer's income comes from government subsidies. Opponents argue that these subsidies shouldn't go towards unsustainable farming methods, while proponents insist that it saves the farmers from unpredictable sales caused by unpredictable weather. Overall, the government subsidies have their pros and cons. Another pressing issue is the modern development of wetlands, a vital ecosystem that plays a valuable role in the natural world, into farmland. A majority of the crops that are sold in the United States national market are grown on sites of former wetlands, including places like bogs, swamps, rivers, floodplains, and marshes that were drained of their water and filled in with soil. The main reason for this was a series of laws that the federal government had passed, including the Swamp Land Acts of 1849, 1850, and 1860, which involved promoting the settlement and agricultural developments on the massive land that was considered useless to society as it was. As a result of this, about 57 million acres of wetlands were converted into farmland. Now, less than half of the original wetlands remain in southern Canada and the United States today. One positive result that came about of this occupation of wetlands is that malaria was eliminated in most parts of southern United States due to the fact that the mosquito, a vector of the disease, required the still dank waters of the wetlands in order to reproduce. Currently, there is more knowledge on how wetlands are actually a very important ecosystem and provide habitats for a diverse range of organisms. Despite all this, wetlands are still being lost due to loopholes, contradicting state laws, and pressures for modern development. In response to all this, programs such as the Wetland Reserve Program began offering subsidies to farmers who take erodible land out of production and convert it into sustainable wildlife habitats, or private landowners who refrain from developing the wetlands that they own.
Overgrazing can occur under continuous or rotational grazing. It can be caused by having too many animals on the farm or by not properly controlling their grazing activity. Overgrazed patches are dominated by short grass species, and in turn, tall grasses are sparse or completely absent. Overgrazing reduces the plant life in certain areas, which reduces interception of sunlight and plant growth. Plants become weakened and have reduced root length, and the sod weakens. The reduced root length makes the plant more susceptible to death by dry weather, and with no plant cover, the sun beats down on these vulnerable plants. The weakened sod allows weed seeds to germinate and grow. If the weeds are unpalpable or poisonous, major problems can result. Overgrazing can also increase soil erosion. Reduced soil depth, soil organic matter, and soil fertility hurt the land's future productivity. Soil fertility can be corrected by applying the appropriate lime and fertilizers. However, the loss of soil depth and organic matters takes years to correct. Their loss is critical in determining the soil's water-holding capacity and how well pasture plants do during dry weather.
Farming techniques were only one half of the problem towards westward expansion of the land. The other half is overexploitation of resources taken from the lands. Due to the Homestead Act, which grants 160 acres to settlers who have been working the land for 5 years, But the land given was too dry for farming. One of the many men who owned land like this was John Wesley Powell. He urged the government for irrigation districts between the farmers to prevent companies monopolizing water sources. Though Powell believed in a more sustainable future, others had went ahead and used a much quicker way to gain profit from farming the land than a more sustainable one, which in return did contribute to the Dust Bowl disaster of the 1930s. Soon as technology advances and the industrial age still begins to boom, more people move into the Great Plains in the 1866s and the 1877s. There is a huge cattle boom which causes overgrazing of land, rendering the desertification-like state or eroding the soil. But soon people began to improve these conditions by fencing off areas that cattle weren't allowed to graze in. Easier produce transportation due to trains having refrigeration, and we have the 1867 when the National Grange was organized. The National Grange was an organization to promote economic and political well-being of the community as well as a whole, along with agriculture. And soon, in the 1872, we get our first national park, Yellowstone, used for the entertainment of citizens, but also to protect the land against any farming. Settling industrialization. And in the 1903, National Wildlife Refuge, land protected by the government to save habitats of populations of animals and other species, a haven for wildlife, but also a place where people can be educated about the biosphere itself.